Hello there. I got a question from Doreen in Texas about celebrating holidays. What do I think about celebrating holidays, festivals, things like that? And, it just depends on your point of view, I suppose. If I was to say that it is okay or it is not okay, well, then I'm stating that it's good or it's evil. We start getting into a system of law, of what is right, what is wrong, that kind of thing. And I'd rather not address the question from that point of view. I think that if a person wants to observe something, that they should be free to do so. But the real question will come down to what does that really mean anyway? What does it really mean? Things like I got a list here of different things that people may participate in. You've got Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, Hanukkah, Passover, even the Feast of Tabernacles. What is that about? So people will observe these different holidays, but what it comes down to eventually is it comes down to the question of what does it really mean to the individual, is what it comes down to. Let's just pick on things one at a time. How about Halloween? That's the first one on my list that Doreen asks about. This is being recorded. Halloween is approaching for this time of year. So should we observe Halloween or should we not observe Halloween? Well, we could think about it from a historical point of view. And I know enough about the history of Halloween to be able to say that this is an awful holiday, an awful celebration. I mean, the stuff related to the history of Halloween is just pure evil, in a lot of ways. So do I want to celebrate this evil of some kind? No, I don't want to have anything to do with that. And so if I was asked to participate in any of the ceremonial kinds of things that are going on during Halloween, if I was asked to participate in that, I would say no. Now I've talked with folks who would fit in the category of people who observe some of these evil things on Halloween. I've spoken with folks like this in the past, and if we were to speak to some of the people who were heavily involved in these evil kinds of activities that were being done on Halloween, they probably would say, something similar to the people today, and that would be that those of you, who are observing Halloween, you're just not doing it right. They would be offended at your observations or your ceremonies or the activities you're doing. They would be totally offended, terribly offended at the way that you observe Halloween, because it's not only is it totally wrong, but they just go on and on with regards to how offended they are that you are observing, just as you would be highly offended at the way that they are observing. So it really comes down to, well, what does it mean to you? What is it really going to be? As for myself, when I was a little kid, Halloween was one of my favorite times of the year because I could dress up and pretend to be somebody else. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like anything about my life. And so here's a chance that I could be somebody else. And, in a lot of ways it didn't matter. There were some things I didn't want to be, but that was what it was for me. And I had a close friend who we went and did some adventurous kinds of things. We weren't terribly destructive. One occasion we were kind of destructive, but, for the most part, we weren't terribly destructive. And we found fun ways to enjoy that. And so, we did that, but it had nothing to do with the historical persuasion that a lot of people have. As I got older, of course, I just didn't do that anymore. I outgrew it. And so it just wasn't really a part of my life. There was nothing to do on Halloween. For me, it just wasn't something that I would participate in at all. It wasn't until I was much older that I had children. And when I had children, well, then there was some, discussions about what are we really going to do and what are we not really going to do? Are we going to go looking for candy or not looking for candy? That sort of thing. And for the kids, that's all it meant. It just meant you're going to dress up in a costume. You're going to go around. You're going to get candy. So that's celebrating Halloween. Well, for them, that's celebrating. And if I didn't do anything that was related to that, if there wasn't something that would give them the sense that they kind of did something and to get their candy, or to get candy of some kind, well, then they would feel like they were totally left out, and then they're going to go talk with other kids and other friends, and then the other kids and their other friends are going to say, well, you just totally missed out on getting a bunch of candy. So to them, that's all it is about getting a bunch of candy, And so I did some things when they were younger. As they got older, I did other things, and this year we're going to do some other things. We haven't quite decided quite yet of what we're going to do, but I might do something that was similar to what I did with them a few years ago. So, whatever this observance is, it always depends on the person and in the end on the individual and what it really means. Does this have anything to do with the devil? Does it have anything to do with anything that's spiritual in nature? Of course not. From our point of view, it just doesn't have any place in our life at all. The idea of Thanksgiving, Christmas, these times, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, I'll add in Easter. You didn't ask about Easter, Doreen, but I'll put that in there because it's kind of similar. These are times of the year when people can pause and have a disruption in their life, and there are opportunities to talk about the things of God. There's an opportunity to do that. But again, it just becomes a personal decision about, well, what is this going to really mean? What is it really going to mean to the individual? And so there are some things that my children and I do to sort of observe, if we were to say we are observing these particular times and seasons, but they have no connection to our relationship with God at all, except for having an opportunity to talk about the things that God would want us to talk about. And it's just the time of year to do it because it's something that everybody else seems to be talking about. And at other times of the year, like the month before or something, or the month after, we just may not be thinking about those things. So I use it for that purpose. Same thing with the Jewish festivals, with Hanukkah, Passover, Feast of Tabernacles, that sort of thing. I can use those as opportunities to speak about things that we just normally wouldn't have a conversation about. But they're able to make a little bit of a connection with those things and esteem some sense of value from those things because it's the time of year, because it's on the calendar, because other people are talking about it, that sort of stuff. But when it comes to things like the ceremonies or the sacraments, people are doing ceremonies and they're engaged in sacraments all the time, throughout the year. So these might be a little bit different, maybe, have some uniqueness to them, but they're not necessarily any different than anything else that they've been doing throughout the rest of the year anyway. And those are things that may encourage people to believe things that are not true. And so I wouldn't want to encourage that. But this is just a regular obstacle that people deal with anyway. As for myself, without my children, what I would be doing is I just use the time to do some extra work, because I'm self-employed. I don't have an employer per se, and so I work whenever I can in many ways. And when there's this kind of a disruption in daily life, businesses close down, people are going to go spend time with their family and stuff. Outside of my children, I don't have any family to spend any time with. And so, I'm not going to meet with friends very often because it's just plain awkward. It's just not the same thing. And I don't like to necessarily be a part of somebody else's family and their activities because then I'm just going to feel, all irritated that I don't have a family of my own. That's just the way it goes. So maybe one day when I'm older, I'm old now, but when I'm older, and my children, maybe they'll have some children and the family will increase in size and there will be some differences in how I observe these days. But, without them, I just use the time to go to work because I know that everybody else is busy and nobody's going to interrupt me. I don't have to worry about being interrupted. I can work and concentrate on stuff without having to pause and answer a phone or reply to something else or go meet with somebody. Those are good things, and I like to do them. But during the holidays, it's a great time to work because everybody else is busy doing other things, and I can get a lot done. All right, so I hope that this is helpful, and I know I'm leaving it quite open-ended and not giving you a real concrete decision or conclusion or anything like that, because this is the kind of thing that is just plain open-ended. All right, thank you.